threw in with the Muslim Brotherhood that led the revolution in Libya, and we helped to overthrow Gaddafi, and we did it in part by running guns to Al-Qaeda. Christopher Stevens began as the envoy to the rebels in Libya in 2011, before he became ambassador. That means that Christopher Stevens was America's first envoy to Al-Qaeda, because that was his job. His job was to work with Al-Qaeda militias and make sure they won the war. Well, he helped cut her to this. The world right now, and what we're looking at, what we're seeing in the world today, this is what it looks like when America switches sides in the global war of jihad. Now, I want to start, like I said, with the president and his policies and the policies of this administration. There was something called a Presidential Study Directive, PSD 11, as it turns out, PSD 11. So this document remains classified, but we know from leaks that it deals with the president's, the administration's desire that America would help the Muslim Brotherhood to power, to overthrow sitting governments around the world, in particular the Middle East, North Africa region, and to replace those governments, many of them our allies of many decades, replace them with Sharia-compliant governments, regimes under the Muslim Brotherhood. They didn't just goof. This was their policy. This was their agenda to do this. Even if it took, as in Libya, I'll talk about Libya some here, throwing in with Al-Qaeda militias to do that. The Barack Obama administration, in coordination specifically with the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton at the time, now a presidential candidate, decided to aid and abet Al-Qaeda terrorists and Libyan Muslim Brotherhood jihadis to overthrow our ally at the time, Muammar Gaddafi, and replace him with a Muslim Brotherhood government. So he was our ally, and we decided, no, he was not the leader that we wanted, neither was Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, neither was Ben Ali in Tunisia. They needed to go. Well, at the same time, this is exactly what Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood had decided too, that these guys needed to go. And why? Because they were not enforcing Sharia. We threw in with the Muslim Brotherhood that led the revolution in Libya, and we helped to overthrow Gaddafi, and we did it in part by running guns to Al-Qaeda. Christopher Stevens began as the envoy to the rebels in Libya in 2011, before he became ambassador. That means that Christopher Stevens was America's first envoy to Al-Qaeda, because that was his job. His job was to work with Al-Qaeda militias and make sure they won the war. You ask about why the mission, special mission compound is what we call it, or the ambassador's compound in Benghazi, was refused for every single one of its requests during 2012 for more security. Well, the answer to that is optics. It wouldn't look good if they put a machine gun nest or sandbag emplacements up on the flat roof of that villa. It was a villa located in a residential neighborhood. It wouldn't look good. And besides, you know, the neighbors really wouldn't like it. Well, you know who moved in next door to that villa? Ansar al-Sharia. Ansar al-Sharia, Al-Qaeda, groups of militias that banded together in 2012 after the revolution. State Department knew that. State Department knew Ansar al-Sharia was living next door to our ambassador's compound. They didn't care. No security for you. And the security that was already in the country got pulled out. We have to be ready to get ready to defend Israel if and when it decides it cannot wait anymore to strike against Iran's nuclear weapons capability, because it's existential for Israel. We must prepare for that eventuality and prepare for how, in the public forum, in faith communities like this, in the media, in whatever forums we can get to, that we are ready to stand up and defend Israel when they do move. They may have to do that eventually at some point. And then finally, no time to go into a whole lot of detail, but be aware that Iran and Hizballah have a very extensive operational terror network across the Western Hemisphere, including inside the United States itself. We need to be aware of that, and we need to be prepared to recognize that when it becomes obvious. If a strike were to occur of any kind against Iran, it may be that the Hizballah elements would be activated in this country. Need to be aware of that. All right, on that very gloomy note, I will conclude and thank you very much.